Welcome to this section on working with JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation, and as you can see in the image, it's a data format. It's a way of passing data from, for example, a server over to your app. So it's a very useful thing to know. In this section, we're going to look at exactly what JSON is, the structure of it, and why it's around. Then, instead of reinventing the wheel, we're going to use a component called JSON.net to actually convert between JSON to an object and an object to JSON. The subsequent 2 lectures will show you how to write from a JSON string, so the example you see there, to an object, and then the final lecture will show you how to read JSON to objects. So, what is JSON? Well, if I wanted to create an app that grabs some data from the web, it would be nice if that data had a format of some sort that I could expect to receive and work with accordingly. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a way of presenting data that's easily readable by humans and computers alike. So I've just pulled up a little example of a JSON file. Essentially, these are objects surrounded by curly braces. Inside of the object, on the left-hand side, we have a key, and on the right, we have a value. So at the top, we have hey guy, a number, 243, etc. We can have arrays that have square brackets. We can have many things with JSON. And if you're not too familiar with JSON, it's a very good idea to get familiar with it because most of the data passed over the internet tends to be in the JSON format. If you head over to json.org, they have a lot of simple explanations of exactly what JSON is. Alternatively, you can just pop in onto YouTube and search for a JSON tutorial, and someone will take you through everything you need to know. One other thing you should be aware of with JSON is if you write your own, make sure it's valid JSON. So if you don't know how to do that, just go onto Google and search for JSON validate. And JSON-lint, I've used this quite often, is pretty good at telling you if your JSON is correct or not. Okay, so at a basic level, JSON is a way of presenting data that is recognizable by most programming languages and can be passed into objects, especially inside of the .NET framework that we are using. Okay, we're going to use JSON inside of a little Xamarin project. So let's go ahead and click New Solution, Single View App, and let's call this JSON App or something similar. Now we have 2 options here. We can either rebuild the wheel or reinvent the wheel, but let's not do that. We don't want to try and parse our JSON from scratch. We can use something that's much more convenient. We can use a component. If you double-click the components folder, the Xamarin Components Store is presented, and then click Open Components Store or Get More Components. And we have various components that do various things for us. Inside of Search, let's look for JSON. And the specific component we want is JSON.net. This runs on Apple, Android, and Windows Phone, so it's highly useful for cross-platform applications. Once you've loaded it up, before you click Add to App, I just want to draw your attention over to the Versions tab. The Versions tab allows you to actually install a previous version because sometimes I tend to find components do have errors in them, especially ones around Google Play services. So I most of the time I tend to keep back one version unless I really need to be on the latest one. But with JSON, we should be okay with 701. Go ahead, click Add to App. Now when you install a component, you're presented with this screen that has Getting Started, tells you the basics, it has some samples. This particular one appears not to have any samples, but most components do tend to have them. You have some assemblies and packages, but we'll just ignore all of that for now and let this finish downloading. You'll notice just above Getting Started, it's got a downloading ticker. Now that that's done, if I click Samples, we actually now have an Android and iOS Classic sample. But we're going to ignore those samples and just close that tab. You'll notice under Components, we have our JSON.NET. If I expand on Packages, I also have Newtonsoft.json. If I right-click my packages, or rather double-click it, we're taken to the official NuGet gallery. So we can also install JSON.NET from the NuGet gallery. So that is an option for you. Again, if a component doesn't work, then by all means try and find it on the NuGet gallery. Okay, that completes the installation of a component in Xamarin. It's very easy. And before you reinvent the wheel in the future, always check the component store first to see if there's something that will help you out. Let's discover how we write to JSON in Xamarin using the JSON.NET component. Let's open up our view controller, and underneath our class, we're going to create a class to hold a generic sort of object. Let's have a public class movie class. And this is going to hold some public string. It'll have a title with a get and a set. What else would a movie have? It would have a public integer that would be a rating. And of course we can get and set that. And something a little more complicated. Let's have a public date time, release date, and of course get and set. Okay, so we have a movie class. Inside of our view.did_load, let's create a new movie. Var movie is equal to new movie, and we will make the title equal to IDE 4, that's Independence Day. Let's give it a rating of 9, that's an integer. And finally, a release date. We will make this equal to datetime.now. And our movie is created. As you can tell, I do like Independence Day. Now that we have our object, let's look at how the JSON library makes it insanely easy to output valid JSON from this object. Let's have string JSON output is equal to Newtonsoft.json.json convert, and you'll notice the summary says provides methods for converting between runtime types and JSON types. .serialize object. So this will grab an object and convert it to valid JSON. So let's pass it the object, movie, and our JSON is created. Once we've done that, let's write it to our console, JSON output. Okay, let's hit play and check inside of our application output exactly what the JSON output looks like. So this is going to load up now, and inside of app output, there at the top, we have our title. We have before that actually a brace, then a title ID 4, a rating of 9, and you'll notice 9 doesn't have any quotes around it because it's an integer. We also have release date that's provided in this specific string format. Okay, so now we've written out some JSON. Let's combine the previous sections where we created text files, and let's store this JSON away. Let's have var documents to grab our documents folder is equal to environment.get folder path. Let's have environment.specialfolder.myDocuments. Then we need a file name, which is equal to path.combine. Whoops, wrong thing there. Path dot, and then I'll have to resolve it. Combine our documents and a name for our text file, JSON output.txt. Finally, all we have to do is have file.writeAllText. Give it our file name. And what should we write? Our JSON output. Okay. So if I run that, that is actually going to write a file into our documents folder that's relevant to our app. Of course, we haven't created a GUI yet. But if we were to, we could browse to where that simulator is stored, go over to the documents folder, and find this JSON output.txt. Open it, and we would have valid JSON in there, hopefully. Right, that's as simple as it gets for actually outputting some JSON. And this class, JSON.net, will take care of everything for you. Arrays, integers, strings, date times, whatever it is, it'll convert between the two. So in the next lecture, we're going to look at the opposite of this. We're going to learn how to read the JSON from this valid JSON that we've just created. Let's look at how we convert from JSON to objects inside of Xamarin using our JSON.net library. In the last lesson, we created a movie and we created some JSON output using the JSON's serialize object method. We stored that result inside a JSON output.txt. Now what we're going to do is drag the text out of that file, and we're going to read it into a new movie object. So let's have var stored JSON is equal to file.readAllText. Pass it over our file name. Then let's create a new movie. Var new movie is equal to, and we want newtonsoft.json.json convert dot, and this is the deserialize object. So this will expect an object of type movie and deserialize our string value into a new movie. So stored JSON semicolon. Then let's give ourselves a console.writeLine and movie title plus new movie dot title. Movie. There we go. Now if I hit play, we're going to store our JSON in the text file, grab the text file JSON and convert it into an object. So our application output will first show us the stored JSON, and then later on we can see it's taken that JSON and converted it to the object we're expecting. So really, that's all there is to reading and writing JSON using this really handy library. And it's a very popular library. .NET developers use it quite often. So you can't go wrong if you want to convert JSON. Right, so that sorts out JSON for us. Deserialize converts from a string to an object, and serialize converts from an object to a JSON string. Congratulations! You've finished this section on working with JSON inside of Xamarin. First, you learned exactly what JSON was, if you didn't know before, and it's a good thing to know what it is, because most of the internet actually runs using JSON. You then learnt how to install the JSON.NET component that allows you to easily work with this data format. Then you learnt how to write valid JSON, so the text you can see in the image there, from any objects you have inside of your .NET application. Then you learnt how to read from JSON into .NET objects, and this was all done using a single line for both points 3 and 4.